Hi, I'm Phoenix Morningstar. I'm a National Science Foundation IGER Research Fellow working on renewable energy. My region of interest is in Afghanistan. I had a chance meeting with the State Department's representative for narcotics and law enforcement a few years ago, in which our conversation came to what to do about the challenge of the heroin trade coming out of Afghanistan. To which I said, well, what if we could make a biofuel out of it, or some kind of fuel source that actually helps the people rather than just hurting them by tearing down their livelihoods or continually funding the insurgency there. And so that's where my project kind of starts in digging in. So when you grow poppy seed, most of the farmers there, they'll grow their poppy seed. And what you'll find is that for the production of heroin or opium, they're actually just using the pod here and incising it and taking out the latex. That's where the narcotic lies. What's left over is just this empty pod with the poppy seeds. You all have had poppy seed muffins or a poppy seed bagel or something of that sort, and that's what we're talking about, those little itty-bitty seeds. And so for our project, what we said was, well, if we're going to do this, the first thing we need to know is, can we do this? Can we actually make a fuel source out of those itty-bitty seeds? Secondarily, can we do it using equipment that would be available or repairable, at least, by a rural Afghan farmer out in the middle of nowhere in some aspects. Middle of nowhere is where I grew up, so I'm allowed to say that, I guess. So what we did was we actually took those seeds, put them through a really simple hand-cutting crusher, and crushed those seeds up, and we got out a straight vegetable oil, an SVO. And we said, all right, now that we've done that, is this a viable fuel? Is this something that we can actually combust? Oxidation level, or oxidation time, stabilization of 3 3/4 hours. That made it within some parameters. Nothing special, not great, but good. Cold point meant that it starts cooling down and getting solidified at -17 degrees, which is pretty good considering we weren't sure what we were going to get, but -17 is pretty darn great. Megajoules per kilogram for energy content at 19.4, we've got something we can deal with here. But we didn't just want to stop there with a straight vegetable and go home and then leave our waste. So we said, what about that waste? Is there something that we can do with that waste to make it viable and sustainable for those farmers and actually build something? With the straight vegetable oil, you can use it for heating, you can use it for combustion in an engine, you can blend it with a diesel. You can't make a biodiesel out of it because the transesterification would require an energy intensity that's just not available in that area. But you could use a soil mulch potentially, or that's what we asked. So we said, well, let's test it. We tested it out. We checked the texture. It came out to be a loam if you think of this as a soil in itself. The pH is a 6.5, which is really quite stable and good. We've got a carbon to nitrogen ratio of 7.6. So far as fertilizers go, that's not fantastic, but this is just a waste product mulch, so we're okay with that. The available N was 21.1 parts per million with a P of, or a phosphorus of 304 parts per million. So we've got something here we can work with, whether we got to cut it with soil or do a little mixing of some things to make it work for a specific soil type. We know we've got something. Next, though, we said, well, what if you're a farmer and you're using all of your space for actually growing these plants, but you need to be able to feed your family with some meat products, with some chicken or beef or something like that, or maybe the market's just looking good for beef and chicken, and you got to diversify your income. So we said, well, what about as an animal feed? What if we use that as an animal feed instead? We call it pressed cake, that leftover waste. We said, well, the energy content is great. It's about 18.7% higher than alfalfa. It's actually 24.5% higher energy content than corn. So we definitely got something there, but we didn't stop there. We said, well, what about the protein content? It turned out the protein content of this poppy seed cake, press cake, is 168% higher than your typical chicken feed and almost 172% higher than your typical beef feed. So we said, goodness, we might have something here. And that's where we are up to date right now, is we've got a solid possibility of using it as a fuel, which can be used for indoor fuels to decrease indoor air pollution for parent women and children who do most of the cooking in that region as well. We've got something that you can actually use to improve your soil content so that you can grow edible foods that aren't part of the narcotic trade. And then you've also got yourself something that you can actually feed your animals. So we think we've got a very viable, and now is the end of our project. We did go visit some farmers in Afghanistan in 2011 and talked with them about their needs. We talked to the Ministry of Agriculture and some of the government representatives in the Ministry of Agriculture in Afghanistan. And so far as we can tell, this is something that will be helpful for them, and we're hoping to continue collaboration. That's all I have for today, so I can take questions at this moment. Thanks so much for your attention, and we'll take questions now. Thanks.